just interested to bring Natasha in, because you did your big pitch there for Tipner West, and you're going to be out the side with the stand, and I'm sure the colleagues in the room from the development community that will be interested. You mentioned Land Meeting C. What are you looking for in terms of the development of that destination, and ideas from the development community that sort of ensures that people don't just see Portsmouth as sort of a ferry port that you pass through and drive to wherever your holiday destination is? How are they going to help you keep people in that Tipner West destination?
So actually, I think it's a bit of both. Portsmouth has 9.3 million visitors every year. 8.4 of them, I think, use Portsmouth as a place to then move on from. And actually, if we can get even 1% of them to stick around for a bit longer, then that would make a difference to what we do. I think Tipner's got a place to play in that. When I talk, I feel like I talk entirely in buzzwords now. I talk about the fact that we need to design for demographics. So I've worked up in London for thousands of years. Coming down to Portsmouth, I've never seen so many wheels in my life. It's a flat area, and suddenly just there's so many mobility scooters and wheelchairs and bikes, and we don't cater for them. So this is one of the reasons why we focus so much on Tipner being car free and having that environment. But it's got to be inclusive design. That has to be part of the destination. We all talk about the fact that we're designing for people, but we're only just getting to the point where actually we've got the flexibility in the way that we connect to be able to really design something different. And it's still tricky because in Portsmouth, we can stay really well connected within the city, and as soon as we move out of the city boundary, as I'm fairly sure one of our polls is going to help us with, that's when we make it a bit more difficult. But the green-blue environment is absolutely crucial, and it's something that the Solent should be able to capitalise on really nicely. And there are so many studies now that show that helping with mental health, whether or not it's an issue like post-traumatic stress or whether it's just your everyday, how do you enjoy the fresh air, it is about that view and horizon and having space and a difference in what you can see. So, as I said, a patch of green space, flat green space, is no longer good enough. We really have to design to give people a sense of belonging, and hopefully that's what we're trying to achieve in Tipner, and we will be trying to achieve in City Centre and every other project that we've got going on.
Well, you mentioned the Doodle poll, or should I say the Slido poll, Natasha. I'm quite keen to get some feedback from audience colleagues now, and I'm kind of crossing my fingers that this poll is going to ping up. It does. Excellent. We've been asking colleagues, as colleagues here have been presenting, what is the biggest challenge sort of working or living on the South Coast? Because clearly that does influence that sort of future-proofing, that sort of distinctiveness, that destination that you've all talked about. So some initial thoughts, and you mentioned the infrastructure point, Natasha. I'm going to be sort of slightly naughty here. We've been working a lot with our schools and young people, asking them, what are you looking for in your place of the future? And overwhelmingly in school children under 16, free transport. This is, of all the things that we've been talking about, and certainly in our strategy in the Solent work we've been doing, we were expecting things like skills to feature as the sort of number one priority. Free public transport came out as the top, and quite a lot of young people talking about how important it is for them to get around, whether it's to an education destination or a sort of job or other sort of, if you like, motivators. So from your perspective, Natasha, inadequate infrastructure, that's what the audience is saying here. Mm-hmm. Does that resonate from your perspective, and thinking about things like transport, digital infrastructure?
Absolutely. That's why I think, I know Southampton mentioned it as well, and I'm fairly sure Bournemouth said that they've got a bid going in for TCF as well. So TCF Transforming Cities, about how we can actually improve the infrastructure that's there and the connectivity, allowing people to move around. Tipner doesn't work. Tipner West doesn't work unless we find a way to encourage people to move around. I can't go as far as saying free, as much as I think it's a great idea. I think my politicians would have me shot. But it is really important to make sure that people can move around and they don't all rely on a single car that they own and that litters up the street. We're also doing a piece of work with City Fibre and looking at actually how we can connect people. So I think I wrote down that there are at least 3 different types of connectivity in terms of virtual and how people connected using Wi-Fi and all of those things. Physical in terms of the transport, how they connect around, but also in community and how they actually have the opportunity to bump into people and have that involvement with their own community. And I think all 3 of those will be important, and infrastructure is going to play a key role in all of that.
And Natasha, have you got anything to add to Mike's thoughts on that from a Portsmouth perspective?
It sums up most of them really nicely. We're really fortunate that we've got 2 bids in the Future High Streets Fund that are coming forward at the moment. But as I was talking about last night, we're really struggling to get a good, coherent bid in because of the success of our high street. And actually, we're really struggling to show that it's failing. And it's sort of really exciting and disappointing in equal measures. So, but I do think retail, it's got things it's got to do for itself as well. One of my favourite examples is the fact that not on the high street, an online shop, it has pop-ups. This shows that online shopping is not the answer to everything, and comes back to everything these guys have said around experience. And you want to be able to touch and feel, you want to be connected to a brand, you want to know what you're buying before you order it online. And I think that there's a journey that retail has to go on as well to understand how they can involve their customers in more than just a transactional basis. I understand the argument and I sympathise the argument around business rates. However, I think that that's sort of tip of the iceberg stuff.
Natasha, there was a couple of questions up about Tipner and carbon neutral, and I know Portsmouth International Port, which is a municipal port, has put out a statement they want to be the first carbon neutral port in the country. That's a really big statement. And just picking up on James was saying how you balance, a port, an airport, and the sort of if you like everyday mitigation pieces that we have to look at with this carbon zero challenge. Where do you sit on that from a Portsmouth perspective then, and the ambitions at Tipner?
So I represent Portsmouth as a property developer. So there are so many other things going on in the rest of the council and the rest of the city where people are trying to tackle things about existing stock. My concern around existing stock and the existing infrastructure is really when BREEAM was really starting to go places, I was involved building a school, and in order to get our BREEAM points, we shipped fully grown trees from Wales across to Sussex in order to get our points. And my concern, I suppose, is that in trying to achieve some very ambitious target, which is what we should be aiming for, we're going to be doing a whole load of things that are not necessarily in line with those aspirations overall in order to get quick fixes. But I'm fairly sure that we can make a big dent in it towards 2030, but we definitely won't be able to solve it and have it all zero carbon by 2030, as much as I would love to say that. But in terms of development, the way that we're looking forward, every single opportunity we look at, we're trying to explore options for how we can make the best decisions regarding energy consumption or waste products. There was a question on there about BIM, and I know ECD architects are in here who are looking after Tipner with a BIM model. Now, the BIM model is not just important for understanding how we build it up, it's also really important about how we take it apart. So I know that Brighton talk a lot about circular economy, and we need to build that into our projects now. It's really great to understand how we put them up, but taking them back down, or how we can reuse elements of them, or that's going to be really important too. For Tipner specifically, Tipner West specifically, we need to think about flexibility. How do we go about getting a planning application, which we're aiming for in 22, by the way, with a start on site in 23? How do we do that with the appropriate amount of detail in it that still allows for the flexibility to come up with better solutions? And that's something we're exploring with the planning authority at the moment, even though they sit across the hall from me.
it just leaves me to thank all of you that actually fed back through the Slido polls and the questions. Thank colleagues here for fielding them so effectively.